The first step was we were asked to start a social justice committee. And so
Mm.
I said, okay, sure. So I had to start learning about Catholic social justice,
Okay.
which I liked a lot. I began it, you know, the first step for that is very often there's all sorts of different um, formulations of 7 themes of social justice. And they're all
Hmm.
good. They all bear some resemblance to similar, but I've always found that traditionally they are very redundant and I think they're typically not complete. So I got to looking a little further. Well, but while I was investigating that, the same priest volunteered me to go to a course offered by the Office of Formation here in lay parish leadership. It was a 3-year thing, and we went, once a week for 3 years. And at the very end of it, 2 things happened. The first is this lovely guy named Porfirio Garcia explained to us the parable of the talents. And I'm ashamed to say that at the age of 40 something, I had always felt, that we're here for a purpose and we should be doing what we're supposed to be doing. But if you
Hmm.
look at the parable of the talents and somebody explains to you what it meant, it's squarely on that. Like when I was in high school, I thought I didn't like stupid people, but you realize at some point it's not fair to dislike stupid people. They didn't ask to be stupid. Just, the only question is how are they using what they were given, right? Are they trying? And if
Yes.
they are,
Yes.
you have to respect that. And so
Hmm.
I gravitated to that pretty easily. But then the parable of talents really crystallized it because listening to that when I was a kid, I
Hmm.
always thought, well, wow, that poor guy that was afraid and just buried it. That seems kind of harsh. But you can kind of see God's point of view after a while. No, no, we're the way Porfirio said it was, look, God made everything. God still owns everything. He lent us life. He lent us these things around us, all these things, and it's up to us to use them for His purposes. In casting that light, that I went home literally that evening and I said to my wife, okay, I'm sorry, this is the game changer. I should have seen this a long time ago. I felt like the disciples on the road to Emmaus, but like, okay, that's actually the best way of saying what I felt my whole life. Here it is. And I said, Lisa, I'm sorry, but this is a game changer. I don't know where this goes, but that cements it. So the next thing that happened is they gave us, for practice, they asked us to prepare a PowerPoint presentation and presented to the group. And so my group was given the topic of the rights and responsibilities of Catholics in elections. And that really resonated with me because I think most people were feeling instinctively by that time that, the problem with the world is that people are trying to pull us apart and divide us for their own purposes rather than bring us together and do things that are really good for all of us.
Hmm.
And so that, pointed straight back to Catholic social teachings. And I found a compendium of the social doctrine of the church. And the compendium has a framework which is just marvelously comprehensive and not at all redundant, with there's 4 permanent principles, 4 permanent values, and of course they're formed by Catholic virtues too. So you got the principles of um, the sanctity of life, life and human dignity, the common good, solidarity, and subsidiarity, which is completely misunderstood, but it means that everybody is supposed to be responsible for themselves and using their own gifts as best they can. But then part of the responsibility of society is to help us do that. And
Hmm.
if you look at the world through that framework, it all makes sense. You have a
Hmm.
comprehensive framework that just makes sense. And so that led me to start Catholic Conscience. I thought, okay, this is good stuff. We need to do this. And I started with parish level all candidate meetings at the riding level.
Yeah.
We
And
came up with
just for
questions.
people who aren't super familiar with Catholic conscience, if you could get kind of give like a 10,000 foot
Well, the idea
overview
was
of what it's
just
about.
to well, the way I put it is to bring the gospels and social teaching into the center of civic discourse without taking sides. It seems to me like the comprehensive and really good for humans framework is what the world needs. And so first the idea was, okay, why don't we have these all candidate meetings where instead of, harassing people and yelling at them and asking divisive questions, we just say, look, we Catholics care about life because, we're all born to look for truth and the truth is God and God made us to do God's work. And so obviously if you terminate somebody's life, that interferes with their duty to do their opportunity and their duty to do what God wants them to do, right? So that's why we're against it. It's not because we, want to wag our fingers at people, but you're cutting people off from the opportunity to serve. And it was really funny because we just asked open-ended questions. I sent the questions in advance. I told everybody, look, we're not here to hassle these people. We're here to listen to them respectfully and talk to them and listen to them. And everybody loved it, but I think maybe the people that loved it most were the candidates
Oh,
over and
interesting.
over again. They would pull me
Interesting.
aside and say, this was great. We
Mhm.
never get a chance just to talk to one another and consider these things from this kind of point of view where we're all trying to, figure out, find common ground and work together. So it was really popular and it worked really well.
Yeah.
Um,
And what have been some of the big successes you'd say with Catholic Conscience?
well, it moved on because that was going pretty good. And that was doing all candidate meetings at the riding level is kind of labor intensive. And we had a lot of volunteers. And so we were slowly growing.
Hmm.
But then two things happened in the 2019 elections, or actually the 2015 elections, the first ones. One of the parties at some point about midway through the election cycle said, okay, we want you to stop interacting with community organizations. So suddenly all these people I had signed up suddenly started to remember they had other appointments and canceling their participation. And then of course all the other parties say, well, if they do it, we got to do it too. So pretty soon, the idea of that was just I had a couple meetings where the only person that showed up was the green person, which was great because they got good platforms. But and
Yeah,
my standpoint was, look, I invite you. If you show up, we'll continue. And if you don't, you'll be an empty seat with your name tag on it, right?
absolutely.
But then I ran into this lovely guy, Brennan Stephen, who said, first off, we really should be focusing at party levels because this is in the days when the parties were really aggressive about telling, and I think they are now, but saying, individual members, you're not allowed to vote your conscience. You just have to vote the party line.
Toe the line, toe the line. That's what we definitely see here.
And so that actually made things a lot easier for me because I realized what I could do was just do a lot of this online because what I've evolved to doing was just taking all of the platforms of all the parties registered for the race and cutting them up and putting them side by side with Catholic social teachings. And it's neat because the social teachings are comprehensive enough that there's no single line in any of these things that won't fit somewhere in there. Now, there's a lot of self-serving stuff that I ignore, but I look for the substance, and there is a place for it. And so I developed Catholic Conscience's own kind of 7 themes of, life and human dignity, the common good, the environment, the economy, solidarity, responsibility and subsidiarity, and then good governance. And so everything fits somewhere
Hmm.
and published it online and it's actually become very popular.
Yeah, I'll tell you it. The work Catholic Conscience has done has helped me the last couple of elections.
Oh, that's great.
I've it's really helped discern instead of looking at a candidate specifically because
Yep.
there's you got to be wary of the cult of personality or
Yep.
just thinking of towing the line of something that maybe this will help my job or something like that. Catholic Conscience that personally helped me really take the time to discern and to see, okay, who aligns best with the teachings of the church, and how does that fit with me. And I got to say, and this I'm not just saying this uh, just because we're conversing. It's helped me a lot, and I got to say, the way you've diced it up has been extremely helpful for somebody like me who's not necessarily like as well versed in some of these nuances. And Catholic Conscience does a great job of bringing up the issues and making it digestible.
Well, I'm really grateful for that because it's nice. I do feel like we're getting we've not reached all of the voters, Catholic voters, even in Canada yet. But every election time we grow by basically an order of magnitude. It just grows every time. We've done most of the provinces now, and I did the U.S. midterm elections last time, and very few objections, only from people that want clear answers or just knee-jerk react to the Catholic Church having anything to say about politics at all, and I can't help that.
Yeah.
Um, but the approach is always, look, we're not telling you who to vote for. We will never do that. If the Pope is running against Satan, I won't tell you who to vote for. I hope it's obvious, but the point is you're supposed to pray about this. You're supposed to inform yourself. You're supposed to pray some more and then vote the way you think God wants you to without worrying about anybody else.
Hmm.
Bearing in mind that, if you think of the loaves of the fishes, God can make whatever he wants out of one vote. Um, just approach it from that standpoint, and that will just improve the conversation. And then a lady named Kipler Yawarski from Saskatoon suggested that I come up with some points to ponder, like to ask questions about things that are or aren't being addressed. And that's been very powerful. And that turned into a newsletter, which is becoming powerful. But then the neatest thing, maybe if you take just a minute, is I started doing some background stuff more on the, just like a centralized explanation of the principles, values, and virtues of social thought, and publishing that just so anybody that wants to can go look at that without having to dig through all the candidate stuff. um, and then I ran across the concept of social sin at one point, and I found a little booklet that um, an Anglican priest had written in I think Westminster in like the 1920s or 1930s. He'd come up with a set of 7 social sins, that had related to issues that were prevalent in those days. And Mohandas Gandhi, somebody saw it and sent them to him, and he used it in the Indian independence movement. And so that's an interesting idea. So I did a little updating of that for modern, Western democracy, and put it on the website without a lot of fanfare and put it in a newsletter. But then that somehow got into this global network of, I think, Catholic school teachers and university professors, because it is consulted. It's amazing. It really is amazing. I mean, with Google Analytics, I can watch, and it's the single most popular page on the website. I can see groups of 20 to 30 people log on all the time, and they look at it for 5 minutes and they go away. Now, a lot of those are school kids that obviously, it's good that they're exposed, but they're not going to really sink in right yet, right? But you see some smaller group of that. Suddenly they're looking at the about page and going through who we are and what we do. And then they look at the newsletter, and next thing you know, it's just all growing. So I did something on Just War when Russia invaded Ukraine, and that's been very popular too. So anyway, it's gone global now. But now the folk challenge is to get back into the parishes. I got to start working on forming parish leaders and getting out the vote and stuff like that.